give a report on the trip to the Yucatan, and I don't think that ever happened, and I apologize for that if that was my shortcoming, but I am very pleased to have the opportunity to show you some slides of the work in Nigeria. It has been an exciting work for me to be a very small part of. It's so interesting. You know, the Lord gave the Great Commission to go into all the world to preach the gospel to every creature. And not everybody can go to Nigeria. Not everybody can go to other parts of the world. But one of the exciting things that has happened as a part of the Lord's church and evangelism is things like World Bible School. The work started in southern Nigeria because one man who was a policeman, and as a policeman, he was corrupt, he was taking money to let people off and things of that nature. And he had a dream one night. And in his dream, he stood before God and was condemned for what he was doing. And it shook him to the extent that he gave up his job as a policeman and the security that would have offered to him. And he started looking for something else to do. And he ended up taking a correspondence course with a business school that was located in Frankfurt, Germany. And so he still was dealing with his guilt for what he had done. And he studied with different religious groups and couldn't find anybody who matched what he saw in Scripture. And so he, in this business correspondence course that he was taking out of Frankfurt, Germany, this was back in the 40s, by the way, 1940s. He, on one of those lessons, just scribbled on the side of the column, he said, "Do you offer Bible studies?" And she did not, and she told him that, but she told him that there had been some Americans who had come over there, and because World War II was going on then, that she had a card. Some Americans had come by and they saw her advertisement out front, and it was in English. And so they said, okay, maybe we can have a connection here. She's got this out in English, and so we'll go in and talk to her. And they talked to her about Bible correspondence courses, and she didn't have any interest, but she kept the card. And when the man from southern Nigeria scribbled that note on the side of a correspondence course, business correspondence course, she said, "We don't offer any Bible studies, but I do have a card that some folks left with me." And she gave him an address of somebody in Nashville, Tennessee. And he studied, he wrote, got a Bible correspondence course, and studied and was converted. I don't know all the details of that, but he began then to teach people all around him. And Brother Reese Bryant and another brother were working in South Africa, the southern end of the continent, and Nigeria is up here in the northwest. And some elders were hearing what was going on, the people in Nashville were, and so they asked Brother Reese Bryant and this other gentleman to fly up to Nigeria and find out what was going on. And when they got there, they found at least 60 different groups who had been taught. And had begun to worship according to the New Testament pattern. So in southern Nigeria, the church is very strong. Northern Nigeria, it's another story. Steve Worley worked in southern Nigeria for a few years, and then he decided to go north, even though the Muslims are much more dominant in the north. But he did Bible correspondence course follow-up sessions, and a number of congregations were started. And Steve and Dee have worked in Nigeria for 30 plus years. I think it's 35 or 36. So what I'd like to do tonight is just to run through some slides of the trip that I made in May of this year. I want to report to you, we have mentioned that Adam Cox, who went with me, he and I have traveled together several times as we've gone to Nigeria. And he was diagnosed with malaria. He was in ICU for about 3 days, but they finally got the right medication, and he has bounced back. He was out of the hospital, I guess, about a week ago, and now is back at his regular job. So things have gone well there, and appreciate the prayers that some of you have offered in his behalf. Let's go to God in a word of prayer, and then I'll move up to the podium and get underway with the slides. Righteous and holy God, we come before you with thanksgiving in our hearts. We're thankful, Father, for those who have done so much for the cause of Christ on the African continent. We know, Father, that there are thousands, thousands, and thousands of souls there, and they need the truth from your word. We are grateful, Father, for the small part that we can play in helping spread the gospel not only to Africa, but to every part of the world. We're thankful for those who've gone before, who devised Bible correspondence courses and made it possible for people who live in Rogersville, Alabama, or Florence, Alabama, or any other part of the U.S., using the mail service, have been able to teach people the truth of your word, and that congregations have begun and grown and developed because of those efforts. Father, help us to lift up our eyes and see the fields that are whitened to harvest, and do what is within our power to give them the opportunity to know your word, and hopefully we can all be together in eternity and worship around your throne. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. This is the lighthouse. That's the term that Brother Steve uses. This is where I stay every time I go. It is kind of the high point of our 15-acre campus. The campus has an 8-foot wall with steel spikes at the top of the wall. There is always the concern that, for instance, when years ago, Greg and Sheila Hamlin were living off campus, and somebody got an idea that they had a lot of money that they kept in their house. And of course, they were beaten, and they didn't have much money, but they got what they did have. But Greg and Sheila now live in Savannah, Tennessee, and they've been over on some of the same trips that I've been on. But this is, there is a little lighthouse emblem at the gate that goes into the house, or where the house is located. This is out the front porch of the lighthouse. There's a walkway that goes out there, and it's hard to see, but there are just big boulders out there and huge rocks. And on the back side of some of those are some etchings of ancient folks many, many, many years ago. But that's a very nice setting, enjoyable to sit out on the porch and watch. This is an idea of farming in Nigeria. That's not the best picture. I apologize for that. I'm not good with the camera. But what you see there are sweet potato plants, and sometimes they'll plant one stalk of corn in between the sweet potato plants. This is on campus. Many of the, especially foreign students, plant things on campus to grow food because we don't have a cafeteria, and they when you have a little area, you may have a garden spot that would be not more than 10 by 5, but they call that farming. This is the newest completed building. This is our multi-purpose building. This is where we have graduation, where we have the graduation dinner, and it's a marvelous building. Inside, there's no air conditioning or anything like that, but it's a very pleasant building, very useful building. It's used for graduation. And during COVID, it allowed them to have the spacing and proceed with the classes and did not impede the work. This is the men's dorm. That was completed about 4 years ago. And again, it's not a beautiful landscaped campus, but it is very adequate for our situation there. This men's dorm, I'm not sure exactly what the capacity is, but it is more than adequate for what we need right now. But one of the things that is of interest is this, you see behind there off down below, and I don't have a real close-up, but this is a little better idea. You can see the fellows in the blue there. They're cooking their breakfast. They do their own food, and so they were cooking breakfast, and so I thought I want to get a picture of that. This is our main classroom building. It has Dr. Ekpot's office in it, and the classroom building, that is actually the second classroom building. We have another one that was earlier. This is the newest thing on campus, and this is going to be an outdoor area where they can do their chapel out of doors. It's not complete. What you see there near the entrance are the concrete that they were just laying in there, not going to put a solid concrete foundation, but like concrete blocks that were laid in there. So when they gather, they'd have an even flooring. This is the first classroom building. Now it has offices for most of the instructors, and this is the paved area of the drive that goes into the campus. It ends right up about where you see the second building, and it's all rocks and very rocky area. This building is the ladies' dorm. We do have female students, about 25. One of the advantages that we have there is that they can go into the public schools and teach Christianity. Parents are given the option of letting their children be taught Islam or Christianity. There's a really funny story that I did not know, but there's one of the gentlemen I met the last time I was at Harding for their lectureship. He was one of the early men that went over, and he had a master's MTH from Harding Grad School, and so the government paid him to teach those who were going to teach Christianity in the schools. And so he was telling me this story that when he went for the first session, there wasn't but a few, but then all of a sudden everybody came over to his class where he was going to teach them how to teach Christianity in the public school systems there. And the fellow over here was there to teach those who would be teaching Islam. And so he asked everybody, well, why did everybody come over here? He said he had only 2 or 3 over here, and his room was packed with like 40 or 50. They said, well, he said when they went over there that he was going to teach Islam in the original language. So they were going to have to learn a language before they could even be taught. So they said, no, we want to go over here where we can do this in English. And most everybody in Nigeria is bilingual, at least 2. In Jos, where I go, it's Hausa and English. And they speak softly and rapidly. And so that was a challenge for me, but I think I've done pretty well with it. Okay, this is our library. You see, we had these big stones everywhere. That is the library building, and it's just this past year has gotten a new roof and some renovations, and there is a lot of progress that has been made in the facility itself. This is just a storage building near the entrance of our campus. And we're set off Ring Road a bit, but they've bought 1 or 2 lots between us and the main road there. And I was absolutely blown away this year at how much improvement they had made in the roads there in Jos. Again, that is a shot of the new building that is being completed. It'll be an outdoor chapel area. That's Brother Steve Worley there in the blue. This is our medical clinic. It is now complete. It is not staffed at this point, but they're working on getting that done. This was just in front of the lighthouse. This is Sule. I don't know his last name, but he works up in Niger, which is up in the Sahara Desert. And he graduated about 2 years ago. And the fellow on the right, you probably recognize him. We go full regalia when it's graduation day. So this is an interesting little spot. It is not 3 or 4 miles from campus, I guess. And I've preached at this church every time I've been in the last several years. Benjamin Jukwe is on our staff at the school, and he preached for them a number of years. And so when I first went to this building with Benjamin, there were no steps up to it. and you had to find a root or a rock or something that you could get a foot on to get up that hill. And it is a pretty good distance. And this is the interior. They've made a number of improvements. When I first went, they had a dirt floor. They only had the wooden benches, but you can see the progress. We've got a concrete floor. We've got plastic chairs up front now. And the fellow who has been preaching for them most recently, that was his last Sunday to be there. And so they were having a going away for him. And they had food, yes. A nice dinner plate. You had brown rice and white rice. And there was a little chunk of some kind of meat on the side. And you had water, and it was, typical of their food. The interesting thing was, I was supposed to meet with Steve and Dr. Agu and Dr. Egpot and their families and everything. And I told Benjamin that. He said, well, we're going to eat here first. Well, I ate maybe 25% of that. And in the time I ate 25% of mine, he had a plate just like mine. He ate the entire amount. Interesting thing, they use like a tablespoon to dip their rice with, and they dip it fast and put it away fast. But there was a slaw there, and the slaw was good. The other was okay, but I did come home, and before I came home, I told Marlene, one thing now I have as a request. Don't want any rice for 2 weeks. Don't want any spaghetti for 2 weeks, because I saw a lot of that. Even rice cakes for breakfast, and yellow rice or white rice or just plain rice. This is one of the fellows that is on staff, and I'm not sure what his position is, but myself, Adam, he and his wife, and their 2 children. And so this was that we have a staff dinner after graduation and everything. And so this was the entire staff was there, but we took some individual pictures. And so we also had the groundbreaking for Sunlight University. I think I've told most of you that the Muslims have put a lot of pressure on the University of Jos because we have an affiliation with them that gives accreditation to our graduates. And so the Muslims are putting pressure on the University of Jos to withdraw that. And if they do, that would have a negative impact for sure on our graduates. And so our board, our Nigerian board, has made a decision that we need to seek university status, independent university status. And so the first thing that the Nigerian authorities require before you can even make an application to become an independent university is that you have to own 100 hectares of land. That's about 230 acres. But we found about an hour from where we are right now, a piece of property that is level, that will be very good. And we had groundbreaking for Sunlight University. And we took the bus out, and I didn't ride the bus. I went with some others. But it was a very pleasant day. Things went well, and they did things according to their culture. They had a group that came and did a cultural dance, which was drums and jumping and this kind of stuff. But I thought you might be interested in seeing that, but this was the groundbreaking for Sunlight University. This is Adam Cox on the far left, Mimi and James Icolono in the middle, and I don't recognize the other gentleman. But by the way, James came over and got his master's degree at Freed-Hardeman, and the Hebrew teacher at Freed-Hardeman passed the comment along to Steve that that was the best foreign student he had ever had in his teaching career. And he said he could go with his qualifications. If he had the money, he could have gone to Hebrew Union and got a doctorate degree, but it would have taken a long time. He went back to Nigeria, teaches our Hebrew, and we require 2 years of Greek and 2 years of Hebrew, and none of our Christian schools over here do that. But we have a 4-year degree now, and this past year we added a master's degree. And among our graduates this year were the 3 first master's degrees that the school has granted. This is the graduation class this year. We've now graduated more than 600 students. Not all had the 4-year degree. Some do a 2-year that they get a certificate for, but we offer a 4-year degree and have added a master's degree this year. All of our teachers are fully qualified. There are probably 4 or 5 that have their doctorate degrees. And so it is okay, am I at the end? Okay, this one, this, I don't know whether the sound will come through on this or not. But this was after graduation, and I had a new phone, and I don't know how to operate it, okay? Is that familiar to anybody else? And so what I did, I had it, and I did not intend to do this, but when Isaac and I did this last night, it went into the movie section, and they were moving, and you got to hear the noise. But this was the exciting time after the graduation service. And so everybody was just thrilled and excited, and a lot of talk. And but it didn't come through when we did it here like it did when we did it at my house last night on the computer there. But anyway, does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask? As I say, our graduates come not only from Nigeria, we've had students from Liberia, from Benin, from Uganda, from I'm not sure how many, but it's at least 11 or 12 different African nations. They have come to JOS, gone through our program, gone back, teaching the gospel in their native countries. One is a young fellow, Wobamba George. I've mentioned him before. I get his quarterly reports, and he is doing a really good job down a little further south. We're in the northwest corner. He's down in Uganda, and he started a radio ministry, was having so much success that the denominational Catholic and denominational folks put pressure on the station to shut him out. I don't think they've been successful at that, but he has said, okay, if I don't get to do that, what I'm going to do is what used to be done here in the States, tent meetings in the summer, in rural areas. And so, see if There should be, yeah, this is the final slide. Uh, that's myself and Mimi and uh, our Hebrew teacher, James Icolono, and that is Dee Worley, Steve's wife, and that's Adam Cox on the right, and he is the one who went into the hospital at North Alabama Medical Center. He is back at work, so he is recovering, and he's gone back to his regular job now. Uh, but he did have malaria. It took a while to get the right medicine, but they got it. And Dee Worley asked me, well, did you take medicine before you came? I have in the past, but we didn't this time. And so I guess that's why Adam came down with it. But it was 2 weeks after he got back before he got sick and went into the hospital. You notice my shirt almost matches Mimi's there. So, but they love colorful clothing, but they're friendly folks. They're open to the gospel. I have been blessed by having the opportunity, and I appreciate Cedar Grove and your support of me and other congregations that have helped. This property that we have purchased for Sunlight University, it was a phenomenal amount. But let me tell you, you think inflation's bad here? Not so, not so. 2 years ago, or was it last year when I was there, for $1 American, I got 160 naira, which meant if you went out, you had to have a pretty good stack of bills. Guess how much I got for every American dollar this time? 1,300 naira, from 160 to 1,300. Those folks are struggling because of that situation. But the good side is we pay a huge amount for the property, but guess what? It cost at least a third less because our US dollars are worth more now. So, you know, I regret that my Nigerian brethren are having to struggle so. That's one of the reasons they eat rice and eat rice and eat rice. But anyway, that kind of concludes what I had to say, but does anybody have any questions? Yes, Brother Newell.
Brother Randy, you mentioned the Muslim influence in the northern part of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Referring to the graduates here, these recent graduates, do they have family of the Muslim faith that they communicate with and try to convert?
Yeah. All of our students, graduates, are diligent in evangelism. We have one preacher that lives up north, particularly where the Boko Haram are active. And his house about 5 years ago was burned. And that we've had church buildings that have been burned. But they keep going. They keep going. He was there, this particular brother was, and he was telling me that there are people now, the government hasn't really taken on Boko Haram, but there are individuals who have, according to what he was telling me. And Boko Haram will do things like kidnap children and demand money from the government. They do kidnapping. That's one of their big things. But yeah, they're all evangelistic, all that I have had any association with. Other thoughts or questions? Well, you've been a patient audience tonight, and I appreciate that very much. We'll close this out. Did I just switch it off here, Richard? Yes. Answer my own question. Okay. Brother Newell,